Hello guys, I hope you all are doing good. I am Vishali Kikan and we are discussing the VLSI technology. In that we are going to discuss today the optical lithography. In the previous videos, I have already talked about the photolithography process in a great detail. I hope you all have watched those videos. If not, I recommend you strongly to watch them first because you will be seeing how photolithography is different from the optical lithography, and to understand the differences you must know what is photolithography first. So today we are going to start with the optical lithography, and to understand the optical lithography we should know the optics concept first. Okay, so what are the various concepts related to the optics? First of all, we are going to discuss about the light diffraction. Light is a wave which emits the diffraction phenomena. Now we all know what is diffraction. Diffraction is the bending of the light wave when it passes through a slit of comparable size of its wavelength. Okay, so now when light bends, it reaches to the hidden portions also. Okay, where the mask were, where I was having the black zone. So under the black zone also the light reaches, and this is how the resolution will be affecting. So light diffraction is a very important phenomena. We are going to understand it in detail. Then we are going to discuss the resolution, because due to the diffraction the resolution is the thing that is getting affected. So we should know about the resolution also. Now the third thing that we should understand is the depth of focus. Okay, where we should keep our lens and what is the depth of focus, what should be the height of the lens, what should be the depth of the wafer. All of these things we are going to understand here. So now first of all, diffraction. Diffraction is the basic property of the optics. We know light is a wave. Okay, and all of the waves emit the basic property which is diffraction. Diffraction occurs when we have the slit of comparable wavelength order. Okay, so whenever we have light, let's suppose light's wavelength is 365 micrometer. So if I have the slit of 365 micrometer length, then the diffraction phenomena can be observed. Okay, so diffraction affects the resolution process. We are going to understand it how. So this is the figure which shows the light diffraction without the lens. Okay, so here we have just the slit. Okay, through the slit the light is passing and the light wavelength is comparable to the opening of the slit. Okay, so this length of the slit is comparable to the wavelength of the light. So what happens when the light enters here? The light bends. Okay, so it reaches to the shaded region. So here I was having the shaded region, I was having the black mask over here, but the light after bending reaches till here also. The light has maximum intensity underneath the slit. Okay, here you can see the intensity of the projected light is maximum, but the light is reaching to the far ends also. So these are the shadowed region where the light should not reach, and it will be changing the properties of the photoresist even behind the glass also, where we had the mask. So even behind the mask the photoresist is affected by the light. It affects the resolution. So now we have to understand this phenomena, we have to tackle this phenomena, and we have to design our structure such that diffraction will not be happening. So how we can reduce the diffraction? We have short wavelength waves which are having lesser diffraction. So this is the reason we are moving towards the shorter wavelength. If we have higher wavelength, even the slits of higher length will be giving me diffraction phenomena. If I have shorter and shorter wavelength, so slits having larger distance or the larger opening will not be executing the diffraction phenomena. So I want the short wavelength waves, and which are showing me lesser diffraction. Optical lens also can collect diffracted light and also enhance the image. So what happens? We have the diffracted light. After the diffracted light, if I put a lens over it, lens will converge these waves, and again it will be making the waves to be converged. Okay, so the diffracted rays again will be becoming the one wave. Okay, so either we can use the shorter wavelength lights, and even if this is not possible to use the shorter wavelength waves, then we can use the lenses. So now this is how we can use the lenses. So here you can see we have the slit and light is diffracting if it is passing through the slit. So here I have used the lens. Okay, so D is the capital D is the distance where the lens is placed from this slit. Okay, so now this is the refracted light. Okay, so now here this is the diffracted light, and this is again when it is diffracted light is passes through this lens, it is collected by the lens, and it is now less diffraction observed after it is passed through this lens. So now we have less diffraction after it is focused by the lens. So you can see over here the intensity of the diffracted light over here is very less, and this should be the ideal intensity. Here we should have the zero intensity, just below the slit we should have the 100% intensity. But what happens actually, inside the slit also the light is reaching due to this diffraction phenomena, and we cannot control it actually. So now coming to the second parameter, which is numerical aperture. Numerical aperture we are calculating so as to find out the resolution. Resolution is related to the numerical aperture. So we require to find out the resolution, and for that we are calculating the numerical aperture. What is numerical aperture? Numerical aperture is the ability of a lens to collect this diffracted light. As I have already told you, why we are using the lens? We are using the lens to collect the diffracted light, and numerical aperture is the ability of the lens to collect this diffracted light. So numerical aperture is given as 2r0 upon d, where r0 is the radius of the lens and d is the distance of the object from the lens. Okay, so d is this distance, okay, where the slit is placed and where our lens is. Okay, in the actual case we will be having the source of light, and after the source of light we will be having the mask, and after the mask we will be having the lens. So the D, capital D is the distance between the mask and the lens. So now lens with larger numerical aperture can capture high order of diffracted light and generate the sharper images, and this is the reason we require higher and higher numerical aperture lenses. The higher the numerical aperture, the more it will be collecting the diffracted waves. Okay, I hope now you understood it. Now coming to the resolution. Resolution is directly related to the minimum feature size. And I have already told you the minimum feature size gives me the minimum size of the transistor or the MOSFET that we can fabricate on our chip. Okay, so the achievable, repeatable minimum feature size is described by the resolution. It determined by the wavelength of the light and the numerical aperture of the system. So both of the thing, numerical aperture plus wavelength, determines what is the minimum feature size of the transistor or any component that I fabricate on the chip. So the resolution can be expressed as R is equal to K1Z upon NA, where NA is the numerical aperture. So now NA is 2R0 upon D. I have already told you Z is the wavelength of the light. Z you can see it as the lambda also. So most of the people represent wavelength as lambda. So Z is lambda here. So now K1 is the system constant. So R is directly proportional to the lambda and R is inversely proportional to the numerical aperture. So numerical aperture is a capability of lens to collect the diffracted light. We all know it. So now how we can improve the resolution? We can increase the numerical aperture. So we can use the larger lens size, but there is some problem associated with the larger lens size. Larger lens size means larger radius of the lens. But if I am increasing radius of the lens, it will be becoming more and more expensive. Plus, if I increase the radius too much, it would be unpractical to make that kind of lens. Plus, I can reduce the depth of focus. If I am decreasing the distance, capital D distance, which was the distance between the lens and the mask. So if I reduce this distance, then also I can have the higher and higher numerical aperture. Okay, so now if I increase the DOF too much, then also we will be having the fabrication difficulties. Okay, so I should have a trade-off between these two. Okay, so now coming to the reduction in wavelength. If I change the wavelength, I should change the light source. Okay, so different light source have different wavelength. I must have a different kind of light source. I must have different kind of photoresist, okay, which is sensitive to this kind of wavelength. So now I can have different type of equipments also. So if I change the wavelength, I will be having changed all of the things, which is light source, photoresist, equipment, all of the things must be changed. So there is a limitation for reducing the wavelength also. So from UV I can extend towards the deep UV or to extended UV or to X-rays. So we will be seeing about all of them. Or I can reduce the constant. I can use the phase shift mask, and this is how I can reduce the K1. So this is the wavelength graph, and here you can see the wavelength and frequency of the EM waves. So now here we have the radio frequency, the microwave, then here we have the visible region, then we have the infrared, gamma ray, then here we have the UV ray and the X-ray. So this is the frequency in the hertz, and this is the wavelength in meters. Z is represented by the wavelength, which is in the meter. So you can see as I am moving towards the X-ray, the wavelength is decreasing. So I can use the X-rays. X-ray will be giving me the better resolution. So let's understand what are the various limitations associated with the higher wavelengths. So coming to the depth of focus. So the range that the light is in focus and can achieve good resolution of the projected image is the depth of focus. So I can have a lens. Below the lens, I can have the range over which I can get the good focus. If I increase this depth, then I will not be getting the good focus. If I decrease this lens, then also I will not be getting the good focus. So I will be showing this with the help of a diagram. So now coming to the depth of focus expression. So it is expressed as K2Z upon 2Na square. Now K2 is a constant here, Z is wavelength, 2 is constant numerical aperture. We know it is Na. So now it is directly related to the lambda, and it is inversely related to the numerical aperture square. So now I hope you understood this. Coming to the depth of focus. So here you can see we have a lens. The lens is focusing the light beams, okay. So if I have the upper portion, so this is the exact point where I am getting the focus, okay. So this depth of focus can be calculated with this formula I have already told you. If I move up from this depth of focus, here you can see I am not getting a perfect resolution, and if I am going below it, here also I am not getting the perfect resolution. So I hope now you understood the depth of focus. So if we have the smaller numerical aperture, then we can have the larger depth of focus, as it is inversely related to the numerical aperture square. So if we have disposable cameras with very small lens, so everything almost is in focus and there would be bad resolution. So now coming to the wavelength, so we reduce the wavelength, then increase the numerical aperture, because if I have very small lenses, then I cannot have everything to be in focus, so everything will be blurred out, okay. So now if I have to reduce anything, I will not be changing the numerical aperture, I will be reducing the wavelength, okay. So then to increasing the numerical aperture to improve the resolution. High resolution, which means we have small depth of focus. So it means the focus at the middle of the photoresist layer. We don't want to focus above the photoresist or below the photoresist. We want the focus to be exactly lying at the middle of the photoresist layer. So now focus on the mid plane to optimize the resolution. You can see here this is the photoresist, and at this point it is the middle of the photoresist. Here I want my center of focus. So now coming to the surface planarization requirement. Okay, so high resolution is required. For that I require shorter wavelength and larger numerical aperture. If I have shorter wavelength and larger numerical aperture, which means depth of focus will be reduced, okay. So now wafer surface should be highly and highly planarized. If it is not planarized, then there will be difficulty in adjusting the lens and the wafer and the light source and the reticle as well. So all of these things should be adjusted, and for that wafer surface must be highly and highly planarized. So chemical metallical polishing is required for 0.2 0.25 micrometer feature patterning. Now coming to eye line and the deep UV. So if I have eye line, I have already told you its wavelength is 365 nanometer. So it is the commonly used light in the lithography process. Now coming to the deep UV. So it can be used with the help of KRF excimer laser, which is having the lesser wavelength. You can see it here. So the wavelength is 248 nanometer. So you can also see that we can get the feature size of 0.25, 0.18 and 0.13 micrometer lithography. So now coming to ARF excimer laser, here you can see we have the wavelength which is further reduced to 193 nanometer. Now it is applicable on the 0.13 micrometer size feature size. Okay, so it can be applicable for lesser than 0.13 micrometer feature size as well. Now coming to the fluorine excimer laser, which is having 157 nanometer wavelength. Okay, the wavelength is further reduced and it is still in R&D, and here we can get 0.10 micrometer, lesser than that feature size applications. So now SiO2 absorbs the UV light when lambda is lesser than 180 nanometer. Okay, and this is the reason we cannot use the lambda which is having the very lesser wavelength. So if I am using the wavelength to be very less, silicon dioxide is absorbing this light, silica lens and mask can't be used then. Okay, so 157 nanometer fluorine laser photolithography is done. Now when it is done, we are having the silica which is fused with the hydroxyl ion concentration, and we will be getting the fluorine doped silica and the calcium fluoride also. So if I am using the phase shift mask, even 0.035 micrometer is possible. So if I am using 157 nanometer fluorine laser photolithography, so I have fused silica with low hydroxyl concentration and also fluorine doped silica and the calcium fluoride. So with this I can use the phase shift mask as well, and I can reach up to 0.035 micrometer. So now we can have the next generation lithography also. We can have that much small feature size. I can have very compact structure, very compact transistors. So now coming to the next generation lithography. Next generation lithography is done using the extreme UV, EUV lithography, X-ray lithography and the electron beam lithography. We will be discussing about the electron beam lithography in the next video, but now we are focusing upon the extreme UV lithography and the X-ray lithography. So now if I am moving towards the future trends, so you can see this is how the ear is increasing and this is how the feature size is decreasing. Now it is becoming more and more saturate and it is not decreasing further, and this is the reason we are not able to follow the Moore's law. Okay, so here you can see from 0.10 it has reached 0.07 only. Here it was exponential decay, but here it is almost linear decay. So this is how we require a lot of R&D in this area. So now coming to the phase shift mask. Phase shift masks are also required for minimum feature size. So now here you can see we have this mask, we have the chrome patterns over here. So these are having the phase shift coating. So you can see here we have this light blue region. So this light blue region is representing my phase shift coating. It is on the quartz substance. So now here if I represent NF to be the refractive index of the phase shift coating. Okay, so D is the depth of this mask, so or the width of this mask. So D multiplied with NF minus 1. NF was the refractive index of phase shift coating. It will be equal to wavelength upon 2. So this is how I can describe my phase shift mask. So now here you can see if I have phase shift mask, then what happens? It will be changing the phase and this will be enhancing our patterns. How? So you can see here we have the normal mask. So normal mask, it is giving here a maxima, and here also I am getting a maxima. So two maxima are combining, and here I am getting the constructive interference over this region. So now here I had the mask actually, but due to the constructive interference, the photoresist property changed over this area also. Okay, so this is how my final pattern would look like, but this is how my designated pattern will be look like. So design pattern will be having this photoresist layer in between, but due to the constructive interference I am not having this photoresist layer over here. So what happens, I am using the phase shift mask. So here I have a phase shifter over here. So here you can see it is converting this maxima into the minima. The phase is changed. So phase is opposite, now maxima is converted into minima. Now here I will be having the destructive interference, and this photoresist pattern is intact over here because here I am not having any kind of light. Destructive interference will be there and light will be 0 over this region, and I will be having the final pattern which will be equal to the design pattern. It is same. Now coming to the future trends, we are moving towards the even shorter wavelength, which is 193 nanometer, 157 nanometer. I know when we are moving towards the shorter wavelengths, silicate glass absorbs UV light when lambda is lesser than 180 nanometer. So now we are using the CAF2 optical system. In the next generation lithography, as I have already told you, we can use the extreme UV, EUV, electron beam UV and X-ray. So now coming to the extreme UV, here we have lambda to be 10 to 14 nanometer. We will, if the lambda is small, resolution will be higher. So it is the mirror based process, and the projected applications were started from 2010. So now we have 0.1 micrometer and beyond feature size, which is very less. So now you can see here we are using various mirrors to focus the light on the wafer. So here this is my mask, the light is coming from the mask, and here we have various mirrors. The light will be reflected from the mirror and it will be reaching to the wafer. And this is how we can use the extreme UV lithography. Now coming to the X-ray lithography, so it is also similar to the proximity printer. I have already told you, in the proximity printer we put the we put the mask just above the wafer surface. It is having lesser than 10 nanometer gap in between. It is difficult to find the pure X-ray source, and this is the limitation over here. Even there is challenges on the mask making, and it is unlikely to use this technology in the actual industrial production. So you can see it here. So here we have the proximity printer, we have the beryllium and the gold coating, which are stopping these X-rays from reaching the photoresist. This also makes this process costly because gold is a costly element over here. So now here if X-rays are here, so here these are mask. X-rays are reaching to the photoresist after it is passing through this opening. So this is actually the X-ray printing. So now you can see I can use the chromium as the mask coating in the photo mask, whereas in the X-ray mask I am using the gold and the beryllium coating. So here I have beryllium, and beryllium will be used instead of glass, and over the beryllium we are making the gold mask, and this is the reason this process becomes expensive, because gold is an expensive element. So X-rays are actually stopped by the gold, and where the gold is not there, X-rays reach to the photoresist and it will be changing the properties of this photoresist. And I hope now you understood what is X-ray printing. So if I compare optical mask and X-ray mask, optical mask is simply made of glass which is having chromium as the paint, the black paint which is having the mask type of property here. But here in the X-ray mask we have the beryllium and the mask are made from the gold painting. So these are the references. I hope you understood each and everything that I discussed over here. If you want to discuss this topic in detail, you can refer these books. These books are amazing, and I hope you like this session. If you like it, you can push the like button, subscribe to the channel, and also do share it with your friends. Thank you so much.